So the Brutal series has been a solid in-stock option for those looking to get into the custom keyboard world. Fast forward 3 years and the 65% design was getting a little bit long in the tooth, so Canon Keys worked with their now in-house designer AIO3 to give this a facelift. Now, if you're not familiar with AIO3, he is the designer behind the Vega, the Polaris, and the Andromeda, just to name a few. With boards like that, there's some serious expectations around the Brutal V2, but it is a little hit and miss for me. Let's talk about it. Hey y'all, welcome to Clackbait. The Brutal V2 is a 65% keyboard that holds on to some of its Brutal DNA and adds some modern flair to the design and the mounting system. It uses a single-sided gasket mount system that AIO3 hoped would combine the calmer gasket mount and the proven top mount characteristics. Now the V1 Brutal series will not be sunsetted. In fact, it will be offered alongside the V2 as a more affordable option. Now let's see how it sounds, let's see how it feels. Let's start the build. Before I get into the details, I just wanted to thank everyone for the massive support for this channel. I'm getting close to my goal of 10K subscribers for this year, and I'm really humbled to have such an awesome group of people to support me. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so and join my Discord server where I'm always chopping it up with my people. Much love to you all. Now back to the Brutal. Now price for the Brutal V2 is $350 US and is currently in pre-order and is set to ship in October. Color options include black, gray, navy, and purple. Now the kit will include the Brutal V2 keyboard in the color of your choice with 2 internal zinc weights. You also get an aluminum plate with additional add-ons such as FR4, carbon fiber, polycarbonate, and palm, all available to purchase. All are available in ANSI half plate as well, which is pretty dope. You also get a 1.6mm hot swap PCB with a single flex cut below row 3. And the hot swap PCB only has the option for split backspace. It would have been nice to see stepped caps lock and 7U spacebar compatibility for the hot swap version, but for that you'll have to get the solder version, which will also support split left shift and ISO support. You also get 2 layers of case foam and plate foam, Canon Keys hard foam carrying case, a daughter board with a JST cable, hardware to assist with the build, and of course bump on feet. Now from an aesthetic standpoint, I think the Brutal V2 looks really sharp. From a top-down view, it has uniform bezels around the whole board, including the arrow blocker. The corners are slightly rounded, giving it a very pleasant look. The side profile is pretty damn dope. The top case has a slight angle inwards towards the bottom case, giving it a seamless transition. There are several angles and cuts that give it a unique look at the bottom. My favorite being the slight lift to the back, which is being met by a large flat block in the middle. Overall, the bottom and the side look dynamic and give the Brutal V2 some really unique character. They describe it as a bold and blocky design, and I tend to agree with that. It looks awesome. Now internally, you do have a nice channel for the JST cable to sit, and these 2 zinc weights with raw finish. It can be hit or miss for you. Personally, I don't mind it, but it would have been nice to have a brass weight add-on option for those that want a different look and a better sound. Now the front height of the Brutal V2 is 17mm paired with a 6.5 degree typing angle, which I find to be really comfortable to type on. Fully built, the board comes in at 3.19 pounds. Now let's take a second to talk about the typing feel of this board. Now they opted to go with the single side gasket method. The gaskets get applied to the bottom case, or you can install it to the bottom of the plate if you roll like that. Once installed, the top plate sandwiches between the top case, making direct contact. This is what gives it that slight feel of a gasket mount with some sound characteristics of a top mount. Now using the aluminum plate, this board felt pretty stiff to me and really did remind me of a top mount board. There's obvious give when you put some force down, but that's not something you're gonna do during normal typing. I'd love to have tried a softer plate like Palm to see if it would add a bit of bounce and what it could have done for the sound. Overall, I'd rate this as a stiffer gasket experience. Not tray mount stiff, but stiff nonetheless. Now part of that could be because the bottom gaskets are quite thick and is doing double duty. At first glance, I thought the board would have some serious bounce, but once you screw down the case, I felt like there was a tad bit too much compression. And that gets me to the sound. Overall, I think the sound of the Brutal V2 is exactly what they were going for. A gasket mount that sounds kind of like a top mount. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it does have a bit of that gasket character in the sound, but I think this board would have had better sound and typing feel with the traditional top and bottom gasket structure. I have 4 builds for you to check out. The switches I use are the FL-CMMK Ice Mint linear switches. These are full palm switches that have a nice deep sound and feel great stock. You can pick these up at Cannon Keys, and I highly recommend these if you're in the market for a deeper switch. Now the first build is with zero foam for all you foam haters. Overall, the board sounded pretty good, but I felt the sound was a bit thin. Check it out. Then I ran it with plate foam only. The sound got a bit fuller, but I felt like there was a bit of hollowness in the case. Take a listen. Now after that, I decided to throw in both layers of case foam along with the plate foam, and the board sounded best in this configuration. It sounded fuller and the hollowness was pretty much gone. The mods also sounded best to my ears in this configuration. Now lastly, I decided to go with some long pole switches just to see what it does in this board. Ultimately, for my preferences, this board sounded best using regular pole length switches. Check it out. So overall, I think AIO3 did a great job with the design of this board, but from a typing feel and sound perspective, I'd say that this is nothing really to get excited about. For $350, you're getting a really well-designed board with average feel and sound according to my preferences. A softer plate may change my opinion on it, but for now, that's my take. And that's it for this one. I got more heat on the way. Drop the likes and comments and subscribe if you dig the content. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Peace.